Hey everybody, welcome back to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. I'm your host, Coach Adam. We've got Director Jolie here today, and making a comeback, we have Coach Brande back in the stew this morning.
I'm excited to be with you guys this morning.
She's back. Gonna drop some knowledge. Before we get into today's topic, which is going to be comparing free weights versus machines, kind of pros and cons of them both. Sometimes we get some questions about our little bit of lack, I guess, of machines in here, but why we do that, and there's, the reasoning behind that. But before we do, member of the week this week is going to be Melissa Miola. Jolie, why don't you take away some stuff on Melissa here?
Yeah, Melissa's awesome. She's actually become part of the 6 a.m. more early morning crew. Also, trains in the afternoon too. In, I think, her second, approaching third month here, her consistency is it's amazing. Usually when people start end of the year, beginning of the year, there tends to be some, I don't want to say struggle, but there can be that issue of I don't know when I'm going to work out. I don't really know, just needing more guidance. And she's just been so fun to train. She's picking up so much education on nutrition and how to train, and she's just been rocking it.
It's fun to watch, somebody that doesn't have an extensive kind of workout history or gym history and see them, learn as they go. And then you're just kind of you're just backing off a little by little kind of thing, and they they start to figure out what's going on and stuff like that. So
staying on top of her check-ins.
Yeah,
and
she's in on her own stuff. Yeah.
Great questions and stuff. So
yeah.
Way to go, Melissa.
Nice job, Melissa.
Good job, Melissa.
All right. So today's topic, free weights versus machines. So when we're talking about machines, just to clarify up front, not talking about cardio equipment. We are talking about strength training machines, so your hack squats, your leg extensions, those types of things that you'll see in a big box gym. And we're just going to go through some pros and cons here on why we lean more free weights and the reasoning behind it. So I'll just go ahead and start off here with some pros on why we prefer to use free weights. And when we talk about free weights, of course, we're talking about dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, things that move freely. They first and foremost are great stabilizer muscle activators. So a lot of times when you are on a machine, your body doesn't have the opportunity, your muscles don't have the opportunity to work stabilizing muscles because you are usually in a very or somewhat comfortable position when you're on machines. The stabilizers are it's how do you control the free weights and force in a three-dimensional space, right? So we have different planes of movement. Sagittal, transverse, and frontal plane are the three ways that the human body moves. And your stabilizers are challenged when we use free weights during this. So for example, we'll just drop one example here. We're going to have a lot of examples today. Just preface with that. Dumbbell bench press requires a lot more shoulder stability than a machine chest press, right? Because the weights are two individual objects. You're determining the depth, you're determining the range of motion, and you're determining the joint angle, right? It's how, just by the way that you're rotating your wrists, it could feel completely different. And a lot of times machines kind of lock you into a position, right? Yeah. Functional strength. This is, I think, what we probably want to emphasize the most, is how these movements that we try to do with free weights mimic real life movements and transfer a lot better or a lot easier. So things like our typical movement patterns that we include in our programming: squat, hinge, pushing and pulling with the upper body, both horizontally and overhead, and carries, things like that. Because, we all carry things all the time, right? So functional strength, a lot more applicable when you're using free weights. On a slightly more elevated level, athletic development. So this is going to be your neuromuscular control and balance and things like that, like proprioception, muscular coordination, when we have compound movements where there's a lot of different things going on in a single repetition. Sometimes we have, I think yesterday we were doing a split squat that has rotation to it. So there's multiple planes, There's multiple muscle groups that are being involved. So just a lot more dynamic, and I guess you could call like an athletic movement. And yeah, I think you guys got any more to add, benefits, kind of pros for
Brande, when you train, do you ever use any machines or what? Like,
no, I primarily use dumbbells, kettlebells, and prefer a functional training style when I train myself. I think, especially as I get older, I'm, over 50 or 50. My husband's 53, and my goal for training has changed over the years, and now it's really about longevity, getting stronger. And I found that in, using functional style training that mimics like lifestyle type of training will benefit me as I get older. So whether that's, going on vacation and carrying a suitcase, lifting a suitcase up into the overhead bend, or hiking, and, just getting stronger through movements that I would perform in a daily life, lifting grandkids or carrying groceries, all of those things. I really prefer, using kettlebells, dumbbells, barbell. I've also found that is really helpful in developing core strength. Whereas if you have like a machine, like if you're in a gym and you have a machine, you're sitting in a machine, it's that one plane, you're not engaging your core. So I found that my core has gotten a lot stronger. And I've also noticed that my balance and stability has gotten a lot stronger using, dumbbells, kettlebells, and moving in those different planes, like Adam mentioned. So I think there are a lot of benefits to training in a functional style as opposed to, using machines. And I've also found that as a woman, especially a smaller woman, going in and using a machine in a gym, they're usually designed for male bodies, larger bodies. And for a woman to go in and use one of those machines, you have to be really familiar with the machine, exactly how it should be set to fit your size so that you can use that machine properly. And a lot of times, even if you do all the adjustments, it still doesn't fit quite right. So, I just really prefer using dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, those types of.
For sure. Yeah, those are some good points. And I think especially with the core strength, like if we're using like a leg press, for example, I think that's a pretty good example where you're literally sitting, holding on to the sides usually, and pressing with your legs. And it's okay. Are we actually pushing weight with our legs? Yes, but again, it's that isolation. We don't need to necessarily brace our core. We don't need to. There are certain things that we're doing in a squat, for example, working the same muscle groups where we're needing to brace our core. We're working stabilizers. We're working like there's more benefit, right? Yes. And I think especially sometimes when people will come in for a consultation with me and they'll be interested in joining the gym, be like, wow, what a great gym you guys have. This is awesome. Oh, where's the machines? Like I noticed you guys don't have any machines. And we end up talking about the same things of like, there's so much value to functional movement and answering that question of what is functional movement for them? What does it look like, right?
Yeah, and sometimes these, like if we just stick with the leg press example, it can give you a false sense of strength sometimes, right? So it's like, you see these videos or whatever of these people that, they go down to their leg press and they've got like 6 45-pound plates on each side of this leg press. All you're really doing is you're just compressing your lumbar spine. And if I told you to, okay, let's stand up, go over to this barbell, throw on those same 12 45s, you're falling on your, you're falling on your face. You're going to get hurt by that. So it's like, what exactly is really working here? A lot of times these machines put a lot of stress on joints that you may not be realizing it's happening during the exercise itself, but over time, there's joint wear and tear in places that you don't want. So you almost want your free weights. Yes, there's a little bit of a higher injury risk because the form has to be good. The movement pattern has to be good, but it's like a true reflection of, even if you have to like say you're coming down with 2 dumbbells on a bench press and you feel one side start to dip a little bit more, you have to have that like neuromuscular connection to then bring that back up, recenter yourself, like get symmetrical again. It's like it's all about adjustments and adaptations, right? When you're using free weights and a machine that moves, 2 handles at the same time, if I let go of one of those handles, the other one's still going to move even though my arm's not there, right? So it's like there's no opportunity for you to fail safely and recover from that, mistake or whatever it is. So I guess really that's kind of the only con to the free weights is, yes, there's a little bit more injury risk because you're not in a quote unquote like perfect position, seated or comfortable position. But that's like why we're here as coaches, right? We're there to instruct your form. We're constantly watching, like heads on a swivel. That's what you guys are paying us for, right? Is for us to watch, make sure you're executing things safely. And then it's not even really a con, but it's hard to isolate muscle groups, right? If for some people, it's very difficult to, if the upper body's moving, freeze the lower body. That's super hard for some people to disassociate like that. So is it a con because it's harder to isolate muscles? I don't think so. It's just another thing to work on, right? Try to get good at. Yeah. So, I mean, it definitely a lot more benefit to the free weights for all these different reasons. There's a couple of areas where using a machine could benefit you. And this is a little bit more in like sometimes the rehabilitation stage of an injury, or even for like very, very early, like gym beginners, just to get them to feel certain things. So like these machines have that fixed path sometimes or the fixed range of motion, right? So if you're like sitting there on like a chest press, you can tell somebody it's like their first day in the gym, like this is a chest press, this is your your pectoral muscle working, contracting. So for very, very beginners, sometimes the machines can help clarify how a muscle group can fire, without adding in too much, complexity as far as the coordination or the stabilization yet. But very, very early, like we start people here with, free weight. They see zero machines here, first of all.
Yeah.
And we have people that walk in, they're like, yeah, it's my first day in the gym in 20 years or whatever it is. And, we have some things that challenge them enough or get them to feel what they need to feel without it being a machine. So sometimes, with very early on, they could be beneficial in like isolating muscle groups, right? And then I think joint rehab also, when you quite literally can't perform some movements that are just, maybe they're too dynamic with free weights or something like that, and you're trying to address a muscle group but in a very controlled climate or a very controlled situation. That's also a spot where you can see machines come into play and be like beneficial. So I think as far as takeaways from this, it's going to be free weights are going to build strength, coordination, stability, and that real world, like real life movement patterns that you want to be able to. It's not just let me feel this muscle contract over and over again. It's I'm going to contract that muscle over and over again, but because it's going to do this for me in my everyday life is how you should be approaching it, thinking about it. Machines, convenient. They're there for feel, but not long-term benefits, I think. So true goal would be strength, athleticism, neurological kind of development, because your brain's working out when your muscles are working out too. Right. You got to challenge your brain to essentially make these adaptations. Like it's going to get stumped, it's going to get thrown off. We introduce new exercises to people here in the gym. Sometimes it takes a day or two for them to fully get it, but it's like that new stimuli, what we need to continue to progress. So free weights should be the base for that.
Yeah. I think to Brandy's point, like as we age and get older, for that true strength, for functional movement, like to just keep up with your life, it's so important to train in the gym functionally with a coach. That process. Yeah.
and I would just add, I mean, it feels amazing to go through that progression too, like from someone who comes into a gym and maybe you start with dumbbells and then you move up to kettlebells and then eventually you're using a barbell. Like that just feels great.
That journey,
like
kinda.
that journey along like your cycle, your lifting cycle, your lifting journey, and to have that progression is really incredible. And if you're in a gym using machines, you don't get that. Like you're on the same machine all the time, and maybe you go up in weight, but you don't have that progression. And it's amazing. Like
having that ability to just walk into a gym and essentially feel confident in being able to use, any piece of equipment that's lying out in front of you has got to be a great feeling. Yeah.
And then just one final thing. If, you're training with us, you have a coach that's guiding you, and that's really important. And then if you're traveling, once you've worked with a coach and you get familiar with using dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, if you're someone who travels quite a bit or for work or for leisure, when you're in a hotel gym, you know how to use that equipment. Most hotel gyms have dumbbells, maybe some kettlebells, rarely have like extensive machines other than cardio machines. So then you know what to do when you go in those gyms when you're on your own, and you're familiar with it and you can continue to train even if your coach isn't with you.
Yeah. Good point.
Great point. All right. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you so much for listening to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. Do you have a question that you'd like for us to answer live on the podcast? If so, all you need to do is head over to the Apple Podcast app on your iPhone and do 3 simple things. First, leave us a rating and review telling me what you think of the podcast. In that review, ask anything you want related to health, fitness, or nutrition. And if you want a shout out, leave us your Instagram handle or name. That's all you have to do. Then listen to hear your questions answered live on the next Q&A episode.